This is show number 13, people. So please, listen up as we engage discussions on the most interesting maritime matter topic to date. Prelude to the bombing of HMBS Flamingo, the 4 Marines that were killed in the process, and the burden that the 15 survivors had to endure in the aftermath of that tragic event. We're going to discuss details from the Flamingo's maiden voyage to an eventual destruction by Cuban-made fighter jets. So buckle up, folks, and join us on the sobering and most informative revelation into the HMBS Flamingo. That's Her Majesty's Bahamian ship Flamingo, from the cradle to the grave. Our sponsors for tonight's show are, of course, One-on-One Pharmacy. You know the time. I ain't got to keep telling you guys what's going on with One-on-One Pharmacy. My good little cousin Shantia Hill McBride and her lovely team of One-on-One Pharmacy workers, you know, they are always there to fill your prescription. Whether you want it online by oneononepharmacy.com and go to the store just to collect it, or you want to go to the store and pick it up. There are 2 locations, East Street South and Charles Sanders Highway. When you walk in the door, you feel you're treated with royalty and utmost respect. While there, say hi to my good cousin Stephanie and tell her I'm here because Captain Bain from Maritime Matters sent me here for good treatment. We are also sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection. Yes, we provide a full slate of ISPS maritime security services. Everybody who knows maritime knows us. Thirdly, we're sponsored by Totally Secured Security and Investigation Services. They are headquartered in 8 Mile Rock, Grand Bahama. For all your security guard duties or security investigation needs, please give my good friend Andrew Stirrup a call at 819-8944. He and his certified security team will see you straight. That's Totally Secured Security. Phone 819-8944. Let Brother Stirrup know Captain Bain asked to give him a call on dealing with your security matters. To the listening audience out there in Radio Land, it would be remiss of me to go any further and not introduce my wonderful producer. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the insatiable, the man of the hour, the man with the power all over the controls. Tonight, with me again is Mr. Craig Gibson. Thank you very much. Yes, Craig. You're listening to Maritime Matters, people. On this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matter airs weekly at 19:30 at 7:30 p.m. every Tuesday here on Love 97 FM. The purpose of this show is to highlight persons that made significant contributions to the maritime industry in the Bahamas and to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities that are there, available, ready for you in the maritime sector. Halfway through the show, we will open the phone lines. The number to call would be 326-8255. That's 326-8255. Meantime, allow me to revisit some of our existing local maritime matters. And of course, there's not much change because there ain't nothing new really happening maritime locally in the Bahamas. We still have the 2 ships, the Crystal Symphony and Crystal Serenity, under rest outside of Freeport Harbor. Secondly, you know, we still waiting the reports, and I don't know when these reports can come out, but if somebody know anything about the report of the tropic breeze and the yacht Utopia collision, you know, please let me know how I can get a copy of it, how I can find out what's going on with it. You know, we await the completion and release of these investigation reports. Thirdly, continue to wait, again, the outcome of investigation surrounding the tragic sinking of the small vessel that took 39 lives lost on that small vessel leaving Bimini, transiting to Florida, and that was about 2 months ago. So there, current maritime matters in a nutshell. You all know how we do it here. At this point, we once again highlight our 5 maritime standards of the past. May their souls continue to rest in peace. These celebrities are, of course, HMBS Flamingo infamous skipper, Senior Commander Amos Roll. And we're going to talk a lot about Senior Commander Amos Roll and his crew on that ill-fated last voyage of the HMBS Flamingo. Again, we got our port controller extraordinaire, the greatest port controller of all times, Mr. Leon Flowers. May his soul continue to rest in peace. And the sloop sailing king, champion of all times. You know, the regatta just over in Georgetown, and you can't have a Georgetown regatta and not think about the great Captain Wally Gray, His Excellency, the greatest sailor of all times in Bahamas sloop sailing. And of course, we got the gold medalists in Olympics, the two that put the Bahamas on the map way back in the early 60s. That would be Sir David Knowles and Cecil Cook, or should I say Sir Cecil Cook. If he didn't get his knighted, he should have gotten it. And now, on a more international maritime front, I reiterate my views on the current conflict that is dominating the maritime world field. That is the Russian invasion of Ukraine. You cannot turn on the TV and not hear something. Even in the news, just read a little while ago, they talk about how Russia is now insisting that anybody who wants their oil or gas got to pay in rubles. Anybody know why? I'll tell you why. Because the banking system in Switzerland and all over the world, they divorced Russia at this time because of the attack on Ukraine from being part of that feed, that network. So Russia said, okay, you all want us to be part of that? Well, if you all want our oil and gas, you'll pay us in rubles so that you will need to get money from us in order to buy it. So Russia survives. Russia survives because so many countries depend on their oil and gas. Over 35% of the oil and gas going into the European Union, the whole Europe, comes from Russia. And they are dependent on that. If Russia was to close shop on them right now and say, look, they ain't giving you oil at all, they will suffer more than Russia, I can assure you of that. Anyway, let's talk about the occupation. The Russian occupation and control of Ukraine continues to look inevitable. Russia's strategy has been altered. The intent to take over Kiev was revisited. So the troops were retracted, leaving in their wake a series of landmines. Why would they leave landmines when they leave? Because they don't want the Ukraine troops to come behind them and not have a problem. Part of the reason why Russia had to pull out of trying to get Kiev is because the troops in Kiev had already planted landmines all over the place, and Russia didn't know where they were. So as they approached Kiev, they were getting blown to pieces. You know, they had plenty of artillery, they had all them big tanks, and they were just getting blown to smithereens because they didn't know where those mines were. So they realized they were at a disadvantage, and they pulled back. I mean, that's wrong. You got to change the strategy. You're not winning. You got to change the strategy. You know, and what Russia could do or could have done, and I don't think they want to do, is they could have just bombed the area ahead to make sure that if there are any mines, those mines would go off because they done bombed the area. But they don't want to destroy all the roads, and because at the end of the day, when Russia done finished taking over Ukraine, they don't want the place to be all mashed. They want to put who they want in place, and they want that place to return to its normalcy, so long as who they want in place is in charge. That's all Russia want. They ain't really trying to mash up the place. And a lot of Russians live there too, so, you know, they ain't trying to do all of that. So, you know, it was a struggle for Russia to take Kiev because the Ukrainian troops planted those landmines along the trail. And they were just wreaking havoc on the advancement of the Russian troops. Therefore, Mother Russia withdrew attempts to take Kiev and focus on bombarding the Donbass region. That's the far east, that eastern area, that shared border between Russia and Ukraine. Russia already took away some of the Donbass cities, but now they went out there to take the rest. And you would have heard a lot of talks about, oh, they blew up this building, they blew up that building, they killing civilians. Well, the reality is, you know, war is war. If Ukraine is not prepared to give in to Russia, Russia will do whatever it takes to make them give in. And, you know, when all the smoke clear, that's exactly what's going to be going on, in my opinion, based on all the feeds I see and all the information I've been getting. So, That's the situation with Russia. So it appears that, the strategy is to take over the entire eastern region. They want to eventually invade the populous city of Kharkiv. Kharkiv is the one city very similar to Kiev in that area that they haven't taken over, but they can get it from the north. Now once they take over that Donbass region, they can get it from the south, closing from the north, and take over Kharkiv and continue moving west until they get back to Kiev. Consume the entire east half of Ukraine, thereby positioning the troops to crush Kiev by the northern and southern approaches. So I continue to have the view that, when it's all said and done, Russia will fully occupy Ukraine and not leave until the leader of their choice is in place. Some people may disagree with me, but let's watch it as it develops and see what happens. But that's how it looks. I think that's the intent, the whole intent, and I don't think anybody could really stop that. Moving out to the big country called China. Last year we were talking about the largest container port in the world continued to receive great negative impact due to a COVID-19 lockdown. Yes, the citywide lockdown on over 26 million residents of Shanghai remain in place. This lockdown continued to wreak havoc on the world container trade operations because this is the largest port in the world. Now it has been reported that the Omicron virus has exacerbated itself in China, and consideration is being given to lock down big city of Beijing. So China ain't playing with this Omicron, and Omicron ain't playing with China. So what we can have? We can have longer delays, more backup, because the reality is those truck drivers, they can't drive their truck and move around to move those containers in and out of the city. And China exports a lot of things, and China imports a lot of things. So, this is impacting the whole global world. And that's why some of our prices is getting so high all the time, because we having all this disturbance. We're talking maritime, people. Welcome to Maritime Matters. At this point, we move to our first break. And when we return, we will address the prelude to the bombing of HMBS Flamingo, the 4 Marines that were killed in the process, and the burden that the 15 survivors had to endure in the aftermath of that tragic incident. We're talking maritime.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart.
For love of country, Flamingo's last voyage. The sun is shining, oh what a lovely day, as the balmy breezes over the waters do play. HMBS Flamingo and crew are now eager to sail. We have our duties to perform, and we shall not fail. There are arms and victuals and water enough. Our good ship is ready, be the seas calm or rough. So away from Coral Harbor we did slip. Ah, no one knew we'd be seeing the last of our ship. Throttles are engaged, engines put in gear. We have a long way to go, let's get out of here. Flamingo has been assigned a southern patrol, sailing under the command of Commander Amos Rowe. See the young crew members all lining the deck. The rolling seas have such a soothing effect. Oh, brave young man, do you not know what evil winds your way doth blow? An anchorage is sought for the night at Green Key, for the wind have come up, the ship must seek lee. Some crew members tell tales to pass away the time, while others on deck cast out fishing lines. Morning has come and anchors weighed. The first lieutenant's orders have been swiftly obeyed. Flamingo once again turns her bow to the south as a course is laid on for Blossom Channel's mouth. The ship is abuzz and spirits are high. We all feel as one with the ocean and sky. Through the channel we go, down the Ragged Island chain, through gin-clear waters. What an ethereal scene. Now a few days have passed, lazy and slow. Flamingo for fuel to Inago must go. Refueled, she's again ready to hit the banks. There's great anticipation from men of all ranks. Today, this will be our lucky day. An arrest, no doubt, will come our way. Lookouts are stationed all around the ship, while the raider man watches for that elusive blip. We're again off Ragged Island, combing the banks. We love our jobs and need no special thanks. To serve our country is all that we ask. Brave young Bahamian men, fully committed to a task. This day is Sunday, the 10th of May. Oh, gloomy, dreadful, fateful day. Would to God you could forever be wiped away. Weary is my soul from the weights upon it lay. I have a contact, the radar watch shouts. It's 5 miles away and bearing due south. The skipper is summoned out of his cabin, while Flamingo leaps ahead as more power is given. The boarding party, all assembled, is standing by, all fully equipped, weapons pointing to the sky. Go forth, brave souls, your duty calls. Stand tall, each one, whatever befalls. As mighty Flamingo steams nearer and nearer, the contact we see grows clearer and clearer, until by the light of the blazing sun we could see a fishing vessel from some foreign country. A feeling of joy now descends on the crew, for what we first thought was one is now confirmed as two. 2 arrests now instead of one to be made. 2 arrests will now to our credit be laid. Both vessels are now fully in our possession. We've only to wait for the crew's confession. All in all, it has been a productive day, and very soon we'll begin again to be underway. Hark there, fellow Marines, from whence comes that sound that seems to permeate the air all around? Wait, look over yonder, look to the sky. Are they not military aircraft that pass us by? Look again, my mates, they are coming around, flying low over the waters with a thunderous sound. Can someone tell what is the meaning of this? Will fear now overtake our early bliss? Oh, brave young men, strong Bahamian sons, your time has come to face hostile guns. This day will be recorded in our Defense Force story as the day young Bahamian sailors achieved eternal glory. Captain, my captain, we are now under attack. Those aircraft which first passed have now come back. See the bullets now piercing Flamingo's sleek side. What shall we do? There's no place to hide. The crew is assembled and Coral Harbor Base is now told of these tragic events as they continue to unfold. Alas, we must now abandon our ship, and soon under the waves she began to slip. Captain, look over there. They're now shooting in the water. Surely they intend our young men to slaughter. I hear even now a sailor's pitiful cry. Oh Lord, I'm hit. Please don't let me die. The aircrafts at last have gone away, leaving strong young men in shock and dismay. And as some semblance of order is brought to the scene, we cannot account for 4 brave young Marines. Austin Smith, Fenwick Stirrup, Edward Williams, and David Tucker. Wherever you may be, may your soul find sweet succor. You've served your shipmates and country for many long years, and many will be the days of your memories with tears. O Bahamian mothers, on this Mother's Day, I pray that God wipes your tears away. Your sons have gone down into the deep, but our God in heaven their souls will keep. And now in their honor, young Bahamians strong and free step forth with pride to save their country. So to the survivors of Flamingo and to those heroes who died, a grateful nation gives it thanks and pray God be your guide.
How sobering was that, eh? Ladies and gentlemen, that trio, so well displayed by my good producer, Mr. Craig Gibson, represented the last post. It's a trumpet song that is usually played at military funerals just as the casket is lowered. That is usually followed by the 21-gun salute, which was the second clipping that you would have heard, again displayed by my good producer, Craig Gibson. And last, and most impacting, was a poem by my good friend and colleague, Captain Godfrey Roll. That poem was so on point. You can tell that he put so much thought into that. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so sobered. But we move on. We're talking maritime, people. And tonight, we're talking HMBS Flamingo. From the cradle to the grave. May I remind all the listening audience that May marks the month that the Flamingo would have been destroyed by those Cuban makes. May 10th marks the day. So for the entire month of May and beyond, we're going to be talking maritime, and our maritime would be the HMBS Flamingo, her crew, and the aftermath. So the keel of the Marlin and the Flamingo were laid side by side, commencing in 1977, with delivery being engaged during May 1978. The selected crew were a combination of veteran police marine officers and a few good men that formed the genesis of what we know today as the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. Ship workup sessions were undertaken in the waters of England prior to the engaging the maiden voyage from England to the Bahamas. And of note to the listening audience, those would be the only two ships that the Royal Bahamas Defense Force ever purchased that sailed their way all the way across the Atlantic to the Bahamas. About 2 years following that delivery, the Flamingo was destroyed by Cuban-made fighter jets approximately 2 miles off Key Santo Domingo on the southern tip of the Columbus Banks. During the bombing, 4 of the 19 crewmen were killed. Some of the survivors were also scarred and grazed by missiles and gunshot impacts as they scrambled to survive the swim from the sinking Flamingo to the arrested Cuban fishing vessels. All of the crew and prisoners were taken on board the operational fishing boat, because you can remember it was 2 fishing boats. One was rather dismantled in efforts to make them stop. And so after the Flamingo was sunk, that was abandoned, and everybody got on board one of the 2 fishing boats and headed, of course, toward Key Santo Domingo. So under the cover of darkness, the fishing boat, which had all the personnel, it was in darkened ship mode. What is darkened ship mode? Darkened ship is when you cut all lights. You don't want any light on because you don't want anybody to see you in the dark. The slightest light could have given sight to that ship from there. So Commander Amos Rowe, in his infinite wisdom, ordered darkened ship. So they navigated their way from the Key Santo Domingo area to the southern coast of Ragged Island. About 2 hours, it was some 6 miles north of Key Santo Domingo. Whilst en route to Ragged Island, the crew witnessed a barrage of star shells. What are star shells? It's those little things that the military sent out so they could make night look like day. There was a barrage of those things over the key. These lit up Key Santo Domingo and the surrounding area like daylight. Fortunately, due to the vigilance of Commander Amos Rowe, they were all well away from that vicinity. And you know, if they didn't leave that vicinity, they would have been found, and who knows what would have happened once they were found. Upon arrival to Ragged Island, about 0130 Sunday, that's 1:30 in the morning, was Saturday night, Sunday morning, all personnel disembarked and made their way to Duncan Town. So everybody left the fishing boat because they anchored just to the south of Ragged Island and they had to find their way into Duncan Town. It took everybody off the fishing boat. Around 9 o'clock the next morning, a DC-3 arrived at Ragged Island to transport the Flamingo crew and the prisoners to Nassau. Along with that DC-3 was the Commissioner of Police, who was Alicia Thompson at the time. Also the Commander Defense Force, who was William Swilly. They came in soon after they got in to make fighter jets return, along with a helicopter and a military transport helicopter with numerous gunmen. You can see the gunmen, reports that they saw the gunmen hanging out of the doors with the guns pointed and they were ready for action. The Cuban military contingent kept the Bahamian officials from boarding their designated plane for over 3 hours. So here it is, the Commissioner of Police, the Commander of the Defense Force, the two most senior people in the country as far as enforcement is concerned. They couldn't even get back to the plane because the Cuban aircraft that came to take the 8 prisoners, it was 8 prisoners, 4 on each boat, they took over the airstrip and they came out and they had their guns and they wouldn't let nobody, nobody before we going out there. And you know, they were telling you in a nutshell, look, we can fire people, y'all ain't getting them nowhere. Only after an American military jet circled Ragged Island, the Cuban transport helicopter left the airstrip and allowed freedom of movement. So around midday, 1 o'clock, the crew and prisoners were then transported on a DC-3 to Nassau. The 19 crew members for the HMBS Flamingo was followed. We do a roll call now because, you know, we need to know who these people are. Some of them are still living among us. And to be honest, I didn't even know that some of these people who I know so well was actually on the Flamingo. And I owe these guys a lot of apology because, you know, you take so much for granted to know that they lived through this trauma and still going through it. And, you know, as I see them, I got to salute them and I got to really apologize to them for not knowing before. And, you know, the Defense Force really did a terrible job of letting us know who these people were. This never happened before. This will never happen again. They were on the force, some of them retired after 25 years, and I've been on the force for some 18 years, didn't even know who they were. I didn't know who were the people. I thought all of them was off the job, because when that incident happened, I was still in high school. So, we got able seaman Fenric Stirrup. And as I said in my previous show, Fenric Stirrup was the most senior one that died at the time. He was on the force the longest. And I just feel like we need to name Carmichael Road after Fenwick. So why Carmichael Road? Because Carmichael Road leads to Coral Harbor roundabout. There are 4 roads leading to that roundabout, and the 4 of those roads need to be named after those 4 men that I wouldn't even say lost their life. They were massacred. They didn't have a chance. They didn't have a fighting chance. They were dealing with a military attack while they were only trained to do patrols. We're not trained in the defense force to do military attacks, to defend against them. Our ships are not designed for them. Our people are not trained for it. We basically train to overpower drug dealers, poachers, and illegal immigrants. And then we do search and rescue. That's what we train to do. So how could we defend against a MiG-jet? Impossible. We don't have surface-to-air missiles on any of our boats. The most we have is a 20-millimeter gun. I mean, you know, that's more powerful than what any other boat they have. But anyway, you know, every time I think about this thing, I get more and more upset because all of this happened, and these guys were just moving around day to day. You don't even know. And when I found out who some of these, that I was so close to some of them, it hurts. Reportedly, you know, Fenwick was in a strong swimmer. While he's in training, you know, he always struggled with swimming. He can swim. Everybody in the defense force could swim, but that doesn't mean he's a strong swimmer. And I always tell people, I can swim to save my life, but if you tell me I got to swim a mile to get ashore, I'm not sure I can make it, because that ain't something I normally would do. So I ain't saying he drowned, but I'm sure if he got hit with one of them bullets, or when the ship was being exploded, if he got impacted, I'll make it even worse. Our second person on my list that lost their life, and I put these ones. You got Austin Smith. Put them in alphabetical order. And there's a road leading from Coral Harbor roundabout to the airport area. We need to name that Austin Smith Road. I don't know Austin Smith. I met a lot of people who say he was their family. I met Cy Smith in Bimini who said I was his nephew. But you know, all these people got family. All these people, they'll lose their life without having an opportunity or chance to even defend. And yet we don't know why. I don't know nothing what our country did for them. They say, oh, well, the Cubans, they give them so much. But what did Bahamas do? That's what I need to know. What did Bahamas do for Fenwick Stirrup, Austin Smith, David Tucker, and Edward Williams? And then we got David Tucker. David Tucker, based on all the information I saw, was the fella who was the gunner on board. And you gotta understand, when they say the gunner, you're not talking about somebody just grabbing a rifle and shooting it. You're talking about a 20-millimeter cannon on the bow. When you mount that 20-millimeter, you gotta lower the side rails and block off because that is a powerful weapon. And not everybody on board the ship can handle the 20-millimeter. You may have 2 or 3 people on board. I remember Peter Patton, God bless his soul. He was a genius with that 20-millimeter on the Marlin. And when we went for the 108s, Peter Patton, myself, David Duncan, I don't recall who the next person was from the Savannah. We went to do a 3-week gunnery course ahead of the rest of the people coming because they wanted us to know exactly how to deal with that 20-millimeter. And then that's what I really understood what this 20-millimeter was all about. So David Tucker dealing with a 20-millimeter gun, and you don't have a chance with a 20-millimeter against a war jet. A 20-millimeter is a big cannon, but it's not automated. You can't move it fast enough to keep up with no jet, because it moves very slowly as you train it from left to right, or you tilt it or you pan it. And last but not least, the 4th person would have been Edward Williams. And we got that road, what we call Adelaide Road. That needed to be Edward Williams Road. This is the fellow, if you see the picture, he always got the big afro. He's short and stocky, according to all the reports I've seen. And he's the one with the big afro. That's Edward Williams. And we need Adelaide Road to be named after Edward Williams. We need Coral Harbor Road South, which leads to the base, to be David Tucker Road. We need Austin Smith. The road would lead into the airport from the roundabout. That's Coral Harbor Road North. That needs to be named Austin Smith Road. And of course, the entire Carmichael Road would be Fenwick Stirrup Road. And that's what we need to do, people. I don't know if you're all with me, but that's my intent. Don't worry, we can open the lines in a little while. Let me hear what you all have to say about that. And those were the 4 men that were slaughtered during that incident. And we have 4 of those 19 that have passed on since the incident. And I would have known each one of them because I would have come in contact with them on the job long before they died. The first one was Wilfred Sands. Now, during that incident, Wilfred Sands was a navigator on board. There were 3 officers on board that ship. And when I say officers, I'm talking about commissioned officers, DATMA-trained officers. Well, Amos Roll was a senior police. Then we had 2 DATMA-trained officers. Anthony Allen, so thank God he's still with us. And it was Acting Sub-Lieutenant Wilfred Sands. At the time, Anthony was a sub-lieutenant. But Sands, we used to call him Cool Breeze, and he was the coolest person you want to know. And I can tell you, many times I went and I saluted Sands, and he'd tell me, man, Bean, you don't have to salute me, man. I'm not into this, man. And I always wondered, why Cool Breezes carry on like that? And I tell you, I kid you not, I did not know that Wilfred Sands was a victim of the Flamingo incident. Nobody ever told me. I didn't know until recently, and then I found out that he was on board that ship. Now I kind of could understand and relate to why he was acting sometimes the way he acted. You know, these things are real, people. We take it for granted, but I can tell you, these things are real. When I find out who these people were and remember how I know them, and you know, sometimes you have a little question, but you don't know. And when I find out who they were, I'm so amazed. We also lost Mr. Oscar Miller. We all know him as Dusty. He was a senior engineer. He was always a chief engineer on one of those vessels. He knows his engineering inside out. Dusty happens to be from Elutra, from Hatchet Bay, I understand. And Dusty was a very friendly person. Yes, he smoked a cigarette. And I understand he was the person that after they darkened the ship, in order to see the compass, Dusty would have been the one to smoke the cigarette, to keep light to the compass so they could know how to steer. Dusty was also the one, because when they go on board that vessel and they start to move, the vessel starts to spin round in circles. They're trying to figure out what's wrong with the ship. The steering wheel was not connected. The Cubans were told to dismantle the steering. So you know what they did? They took out the steering pin and they dropped it in the bilge. And somehow, by God's good graces, Dusty was able to wake himself around and look and search, and he went into the bilge and he found that pin and put it back in place. Otherwise, the story would have been a different story. Thank goodness for Dusty Miller. Leo Kirby, my very good friend. Leo worked with me on the Inagua. He worked with me on the Yellow Elder. Very good cook. I never knew that Leo was part of that crew. And Leo was one of the 2. It was Leo and it was John Wallace. They were from Ragged Island. And it's a good thing they were on the fishing boat with everybody else, because they were the ones who knew the track road to get from the southern anchorage to get to the city, to Duncan Town, in the middle of the night. So Leo Kirby, again, he's married to my good friend Rose Kirby. I'm a good family to the Johnsons, a good friend to that Johnson family who Leo was married into. And, you know, God bless his soul. And, of course, last but not least, out of the 4 that passed after the incident was Amos Roll. That name, he's one of the famous people on my list as far as maritime in the Bahamas ever. And, you know, I spoke to a couple of people recently about Amos Roll. And, you know, the last person I spoke to, a very good friend of mine, he just spoke on Sunday. And he told me, he said, man, the thing about Amos Roll, because he was on the boat when it came from England. I tried to get him on the show tonight, but, you know, we made him do a show later on. But I understand that Amos Roll crew was untouchable. When they tried to get Amos Roll crew, if Amos say, this is what you could do, or that's what you could do, or we're not doing that, they will back him. Nobody else could get him to do anything. He just had that command about him, and people followed whatever he said. And, you know, that's the mark of a leader, eh? Leadership is getting the person at the bottom end to want to do what you tell them to do. And Amos was the pinnacle on that. And then, that's why he's on top of my list. Okay, so those were the 4 who died since the incident. Wilfred Sands, Oscar Miller, Leo Kirby, and Amos Rowe. So when you see their families, those of us who come in contact, who knows them, please, just reach out and let them know that, you're sorry that those men had to go through that. And then we have another 11 that are still living. We got Anthony Allens. Of course, Anthony went on to be captain in the Defense Force. He was earmarked to be Commodore. That didn't happen. He ended up being the port controller. And he's now retired. And, Anthony is having little challenges with his health. But Anthony did his part. He did his part. He was about, 20 to 21 years old, very young officer, and he was the XO on board that ship when it was taken down. So he had a strategic part to play to keep that crew together along with Commander Amos Rowe. Then we got Peterson James. Peterson James is a former police Marine. And Peterson James and I worked together in the administration department of the Defense Force. But before I even joined the Defense Force, I knew who Peterson James was. Because my good friend T.R. Johnson, Richie was a good friend of mine. And Richie would always talk with T.R. Johnson, because he was Peterson James was in charge of the transport department, and Richie was one of the bus drivers, him and Seeley and a couple of those guys. And I mean, that's the only person I ever heard Richie talk about before I joined the Defense Force. I knew him when I joined and I met him, I saw why. This man, when he left the Defense Force after 25 years, he left a mark. I was shocked that he left, but I mean, anything he said to do, he did. I remember he was trying to ride a one-wheel bike. We would see him on the road because he used to walk to work. Then he started jogging to work. Then he started riding his one-wheel bike to work. And he didn't care what you think about him, He just challenged what he wanted to do. And eventually he was able to ride that one-wheel bike, because he was living on St. Vincent Road, ride that one-wheel bike to Coral Harbor Base, and everybody, they had to shut them out. But Peterson James was a character. He was a leader. He had, he meant everything. He put everything into the Defense Force. I understand Peterson is now living in Abaco for the past so many years. One day I'd like to meet up with you, Brother Peterson, again. I don't know if you're listening to this show. I hope somebody tell you, because, boy, we need to get together again. You and I worked very well together in admin. I was the first lieutenant, and you was in charge of drafting up the charges and chasing these people down who getting out of line. Gregory Curry. Don't worry, people. I'll open up the line in a minute. I got to go through this right now. Gregory Curry. Now, we call him Spook. That's what I knew him as on the Defense Force. But he was a senior technician, radio technician. I remember when we went, now obviously Curry was also, I think he also came from the Police Marines. But he was short like me, and that's, I like when I see short people. If you're a little shorter than me, I feel like I got a little, I feel good because I was the shortest. So Gregory was a short guy, and he was very, very knowledgeable with his radios and whatnot. And I remember when we went to Portland, when we went with the 108s, he went with the Yellow Elder crew. They went ahead of us. But when we got over there, it was like a month or two later. And he was preparing us for what we got to go through when we do our workup. See, the Samana and Nelson did their workup after the Yellow Elder. So he already knew what they went through. And he would come and he would rough up the crew. And I had a problem with that. I used to tell him, I said, man, we ain't never do this before, we ain't never doing it. And I don't know why he was so serious until I heard that he was part of that ship, the Flamingo. When it sank, he knew how important it was to do things right, to do things quickly. So, Gregory, I say to you, my friend, Brother Spook, I apologize for trying to slow you down. I realize now that you knew more than all of us could ever know, plus you already went through it with the Yellow Elder. So, very good job, and one of these days I hope to meet you again real soon so that I can apologize for just trying to get in your way. I really shouldn't have done that. Denzel Clark. Who's Denzel Clark? Most people know Denzel Clark outside of the Defense Force because he was one of the best hitters we ever had in softball and baseball. And if Denzel did not survive this incident, or if he did not come out of this incident whole, he wouldn't have achieved we wouldn't have known, we wouldn't have seen all those home runs. Denzel Clark was a household name on the baseball field and on the softball field. again, from Hatchet Bay, Luttra. We have 3 people from Hatchet Bay, Luttra on this vessel when this incident took place, right? And the 3 of them survived it, but we owe a lot to Hatchet Bay, Luttra. Hope that someday when we putting things together to honor these people, we do something in Hatchet Bay, Luttra, because 3 of their sons still alive, except for Dusty, were involved in that incident. Trevor Sands. I don't know Trevor Sands. I know Trevor Sands because we used to call him T. Sands, but I never worked directly with Trevor Sands because he left the job kind of early ahead of most of these other people. So Trevor Sands, I say to you, my friend, I know you as T. Sands, and I'm sure you probably remember when I first came back from Dartmouth, trying to figure out what's going on in the force. I did not know you was part of the Flamingo crew. I would have looked at you from a different light. Not that I had a problem, because you and I had no kind of issues. Like I say, I only basically knew you as T. Sands, and we would hail each other and all the rest of that. John Wallace, boy, what a man. John Wallace worked with me for years on the Inagua. We sailed more than any other ship that was in the fleet at that time. And then John Wallace left and he went to the port department. And you know what? I followed him. They sent me to the port department, and me and John Wallace was working together. But, you know, I never knew that John Wallace was one of the Flamingo crew. Nobody never told me, and I really should have been told. John, I have to apologize to you for just taking you as just a normal person, because, you know, you went through a lot. And we got to do something for you guys. Whitfield Neely. And I knew Whitfield from time he's in Aquinas. He don't know me. Him and my brother graduated together. Before he joined the Defense Force, when he started his little, Whitfield, what that was doing, Brother Whitfield? I think they were sewing, they were making clothes, and he made my school uniform and all for me. I don't think he knew that, but that's when I met him. And then when I went to Defense Force, I met him again, and he never knew that I knew him prior to that. But you know, one of the nicest persons you could find. Whitfield Neely, again, he's from Bryland. I met his sisters and then when I went to Bryland at one point. And Whitfield Neely was the last one to retire from the Defense Force of all his crew. And of course, he made it all the way up from Marine seaman to captain, the rank of captain. And I congratulate you, Whitfield. I always knew that you was one of the persons on board the vessel when it sank, because that was no secret. Everybody know what you did. You were the one that got the dory or the Avon, the inflatable, and went around and pick up Aaron's roll and pick up people out of the water who needed assistance in getting to the captured craft. So you played a vital role, and you were so young, because you was a Marine seaman just out of training, must have been 2 or 3 months prior to that incident. And, you know, congratulations, Whitfield. But, you know, the country needs to know the contributions you guys made and what you guys went through, because some reparation need to be done, my friend. Willard Sanders. Okay, time running away. Willard Sanders. Willard Sanders sailed with me quite a few times. A good cook. Some people say he couldn't cook, but I could tell you the best peas and rice I ever had out to sea. And I always asked him how you do your peas and rice, because his peas and rice used to come out 1-1, and he really knew what he was doing. But you could tell at times that Willard Sanders, he was the type of person who really wanted to be by himself. He didn't talk much, but he was there. So, Brother Sanders, I don't know you prior to meeting you in the Defense Force. So I definitely don't know you prior to the Flamingo incident. But I can say I am so happy that I now know that you was part of that incident and you survived it, and you know you did what you had to do. So congratulations, and whenever I see you again, you know, I'll be very more than happy to see you, and thank you for what you are. Anthony Russell. I don't know him as Anthony Russell. I know him as A.K. Russell. A.K. Russell, very, very nice person. Ain't nobody can ever have no problem with A.K. because he can cause no problem for nobody. Now, he survived that incident. I didn't know he was part of that all these years. I know his brother Eddie Russell. We worked together far more than A.K. The most I know about A.K. is you go in the pool room to shoot pool with A.K. and you can get beat. That's a pool shark. You know, everybody in the job knew A.K. is the pool shark. But I never knew, A.K., that you were actually on board the Flamingo when it went down. So, again, when I see you, we got to do some talking, my friend. Eugene Blue Thompson. I always knew him as Blue. Eugene Thompson, that's his name. I couldn't tell you what his name was before I did this research. I only know him as Blue Thompson. engineer extraordinaire. He did a lot of work at the prison when he went to help the people who were incarcerated to learn engineering, learn mechanic work. And again, I didn't even know until I saw some clips in my research that Blue was a part of the Flamingo incident. So Blue, I apologize to you, my friend. You did well. I always see you, and I look for you even more now. Cladwell Farrington, last but not least. Lines will be open in a minute. Cladwell Farrington. Cladwell recently wrote a book on the sinking of the Flamingo. I have a copy of that book. I've read that book. And I can tell you, while it don't go into much deep details, because it's only about 20, 25 pages, it gives you a full synopsis of exactly what took place on board the Flamingo during that incident. So Cladwell, congratulations to you, my friend. Now, I met Cladwell when I came back from Dartmouth in 1982. I went off in 81, April, came back in 82. He was still on a job. I think he's in someplace in the clubhouse. He had his little office up there. And I always thought, but again, I never knew that Cladwell was part of that crew that went down with the Flamingo. Didn't know. Nobody never told me. I don't know. I guess it was my business to go and find out. But people in the defense force need to know who these people are that went through that. Because it's only them that went through it. Nobody else will ever go through that again. So Cladwell left the defense force and joined up with Bahamas Air. And on numerous occasions, I asked him for assistance in finding my bag. Because, you know, Bahamas Air used to lose a lot of bags. And every time I saw him, I was so happy because I knew him. But yet, I did not know that he was one of those persons on that ill-fated ship. So Cladwell, congratulations on your new book, my friend. We're going to keep it together. I know we get, as a matter of fact, Cladwell is a person that I have earmarked, and he have agreed to some extent to call in, and we'll do the next show together. Cladwell Farrington. These are the Patriots, people. We're talking maritime. Welcome to Maritime Matters. At this point, we move to our second break. And when we return, we will continue with the prelude to the bombing of the HMBS Flamingo, the 4 Marines that were killed in the process, and the burden that the 15 survivors had to endure in the aftermath of that tragic incident. We're talking maritime. Maritime Matters.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart.
Watching the ships roll in, and I want to roll away again. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll in. Sitting on the dock of the bay, edge of time.
For love of country, Flamingo's last voyage. The sun is shining, oh what a lovely day, as the balmy breezes over the waters do play. HMBS Flamingo and crew are now eager to sail. We have our duties to perform, and we shall not fail. There are arms and victuals and water enough. Our good ship is ready, be the seas calm or rough. So away from Coral Harbor we did slip. Ah, no one knew we'd be seeing the last of our ship. Throttles are engaged, engines put in gear. We have a long way to go. Let's get out of here. Flamingo has been assigned a southern patrol, sailing under the command of Commander Amos Rowe. See the young crew members all lining the deck. The rolling seas have such a soothing effect. Oh, brave young man, do you not know what evil winds your way doth blow? An anchorage is sought for the night at Green Key, for the wind have come up, the ship must seek lee. Some crew members tell tales to pass away the time, while others on deck cast out fishing lines. Morning has come and anchor is weighed. The first lieutenant's orders have been swiftly obeyed. Flamingo once again turns her bow to the south, as a course is laid on for Blossom Channel's mouth. The ship is abuzz and spirits are high. We all feel as one with the ocean and sky. Through the channel we go, down the ragged island chain, through gin-clear waters. What an ethereal scene. Now a few days have passed, lazy and slow. Flamingo for fuel to Inago must go. Refueled, she's again ready to hit the banks. There's great anticipation from men of all ranks. Today, this will be our lucky day. An arrest, no doubt, will come our way. Lookouts are stationed all around the ship, while the raider man watches for that elusive blip. We're again off Ragged Island, combing the banks. We love our jobs and need no special thanks. To serve our country is all that we ask. Brave young Bahamian men, fully committed to a task. This day is Sunday, the 10th of May. Oh, gloomy, dreadful, fateful day. Would to God you could forever be wiped away. Weary is my soul from the weights upon it lay. I have a contact, the radar watch shouts. It's 5 miles away and bearing due south. The skipper is summoned out of his cabin, while Flamingo leaps ahead as more power is given. The boarding party all assembled is standing by, all fully equipped, weapons pointing to the sky. Go forth, brave souls, your duty calls. Stand tall, each one, whatever befalls. As mighty Flamingo steams nearer and nearer, the contact we see grows clearer and clearer, until by the light of the blazing sun we could see a fishing vessel from some foreign country. A feeling of joy now descends on the crew, for what we first thought was one is now confirmed as two. 2 arrests now instead of 1 to be made. 2 arrests will now to our credit be laid. Both vessels are now fully in our possession. We've only to wait for the crew's confession. All in all, it has been a productive day, and very soon we'll begin again to be underway. Hark there, fellow Marines, from whence comes that sound that seems to permeate the air all around? Wait, look over yonder, look to the sky. Are they not military aircraft that pass us by? Look again, my mates, they are coming around, flying low over the waters with a thunderous sound. Can someone tell what is the meaning of this? Will fear now overtake our early bliss? Oh, brave young men, strong Bahamian sons, your time has come to face hostile guns. This day will be recorded in our Defense Force story as the day young Bahamian sailors achieved eternal glory. Captain, my captain, we are now under attack. Those aircraft which first passed have now come back. See the bullets now piercing Flamingo's sleek side. What shall we do? There's no place to hide. The crew is assembled and Coral Harbor Base is now told of these tragic events as they continue to unfold. Alas, we must now abandon our ship, and soon under the waves she begin to slip. Captain, look over there. They're now shooting in the water. Surely they intend our young men to slaughter. I hear even now a sailor's pitiful cry. Oh Lord, I'm hit. Please don't let me die. The aircrafts at last have gone away, leaving strong young men in shock and dismay. And as some semblance of order is brought to the scene, we cannot account for 4 brave young Marines. Austin Smith, Fenwick Stirrup, Edward Williams, and David Tucker. Wherever you may be, may your soul find sweet succor. You've served your shipmates and country for many long years, and many will be the days of your memories with tears. O Bahamian mothers, on this Mother's Day, I pray that God wipes your tears away. Your sons have gone down into the deep, but our God in heaven their souls will keep. And now in their honor, young Bahamians strong and free step forth with pride to save their country. So to the survivors of Flamingo and to those heroes who died, a grateful nation gives it thanks and pray God be your guide.
Free role. What penmanship, what oratory skills. Godfrey, you are simply the best, my friend. How sobering, people. I see the lines are lit up. So before I go to my long list of other things to talk about, let's go to the line and get your input. Line 1, you on Maritime Matters. I see you've been holding a long time. My apologies. I really couldn't get to the phone.
No apologies necessary, Captain. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you, Jerome. Thank you, my brother. How are you?
It's a necessary and sobering moment, so no apologies, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Let me first acknowledge and thank God for the lives that He did give us to serve on the Defense Force that day. And I want to thank the family of those Marines who would have sacrificed their lives, whether they would have died or would have suffered that experience. I thank the family and most importantly the Marines themselves for their sacrifice to this nation. And I want to just say the greatest honor to all of you, current and past brave men and women of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. As I listened to your show, Captain, I just wanted to ask a few quick things.
Go ahead.
How long in length was the Flamingo?
103 feet.
103 feet.
They were the largest 2 vessels Defense Force ever had built up to that point.
Got it. And for those of us who may not know, those boats were absolutely and definitely within the territorial waters of the Bahamas.
Oh, most definitely. But for fishing, Jerome,
No,
it's 12 miles. It's 12 miles territorial for fishing.
Exactly. But that's what I'm trying. That's what I'm endeavoring to lay here, the groundwork to put the facts out there, because a lot of us don't know the facts.
That's right. That's right.
Our Defense Force boat was in our territorial water, carrying out the job that they were as officers of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force was sworn to carry out. And this situation over there with Ukraine and Russia makes this experience here even more sobering, because the same thing that Russia has done to Ukraine, i.e. invaded that country, that's what happened to us 42 years ago.
Well, the difference I would beg to say is that Ukraine knew Russia was coming. Ukraine has military people to fight back, but we were just massacred because we were not only off guard, we could never have been prepared for that.
Right, because like you were saying, we are not trained as a military to respond to military threat.
We don't know anything about surface to air defense.
That's what I'm endeavoring to get at, though. However it lined up, however it played out, however we were trained as Defense Force officers, the essential fact is our country was invaded.
That is correct.
Cuba, it came into the Bahamas, not only over our territorial waters, landed its military officers. That was an invasion.
That was an invasion, my friend. But remember what could lend to that happening, Jerome, is we never had large vessels like this patrolling that far south. It was very seldom that prior to the Flamingo and Marlin coming in,
Yeah.
the 60-footers never really went that far.
Right.
So the Cubans were so used to coming in that area, and they thought it was theirs.
They thought it was there.
Well, I'm sure they knew it wasn't theirs, but that's the way, because they were not used to patrol boats being in that area. They just own the place.
The fact of the matter is, no matter what Cuba may or may not have thought, Cuba had no right to do.
You're absolutely right,
He
and
had every right to arrest those Cuban poachers.
every single right.
And the other thing I wanted to reflect on quickly is that, of course, Captain Adams was the port patrol, as you mentioned, and he, of course, was the port patrol at the time when I did that marine event, when you and I did that marine event.
That is correct.
And I did not know then that he was a part of the Flamingo.
That's right. A lot of people never knew. They look at Captain Adams and they never knew that he was second in command of that ship
But you know,
at a young age of 21, 22-ish.
this is a we as Bahamians, we must talk more about us as a people, man, because it is sad, as you were saying, to know that all of those years you were around your colleagues and did not even know that those were the men,
That's right.
the survivors.
And I knew all of them personally, but I didn't know that they were the ones that were involved in the Flamingo incident.
Yeah.
It's nowhere on the base to find out. I mean, I
There's
just...
not a memorial down there.
Well, they do it now, but back when I was there, it wasn't really being done to the extent where we would know about the 4 men who died, because they got some ships and they named them after those men.
exactly,
But the ones who survived, you knew about Amos Roll, and I knew about Anthony Allens and Dusty and 1 or 2 others. But most of them I didn't know that they were actually on that vessel. Jerome, we got 2 more lines left for a little while.
I can wrap up on this note.
Go ahead.
With regards to honoring, I cannot reveal yet the context in which it's happening, but the honoring of the HMBS Flamingo's incident and in that Coral Harbor area
Right.
is in the planning stage. I can't say any more than that.
Well, that's very good. And
I just wanted to let you and the public know that something is planning, and we pray God it will come off as we have it in mind for it to happen.
I'm so happy to hear that, my friend.
God bless you, man.
All right, let me go to line. Is it line 4, Craig? Line 4, I've been holding for a long time. I see some other lines are lit up. Line 4, you on Maritime Matters. Good night. Hello? Okay, he's gone. Let's try line 3. Line 3, you're on Maritime Matters. Good night.
Good night, sir. How you doing?
I'm a little sober, but I'm doing very well, sir. Thanks for calling Maritime Matters. How are you?
I'm good. I've been listening. I'm calling from Freeport. I guess you can take up what this is. I've been listening for the last few years.
Very good.
You sure? Sorry.
Yes, I know who this. Go right ahead, my brother, sir.
This is very interesting. One thing I'd like to know, is there any books that was written on this topic with regards to this event?
There is one book that has just been written, is released. I have a copy. I can help you get a copy if you want, but the name is Mr. Cladwell Farrington. He wrote a book. I don't recall the name off my head, but something, but the 10th of May, it's because of the 10th of May, 1980. I think that's the name of it, but it talks about the Flamingo incident, yes. Yeah.
That's busy, but I want you to know that the show is very interesting and very educational. I think it should be, more focus should be placed on it with regards to the history of the Bahamas.
I appreciate that, sir.
I would like to, if possible, just give you a suggestion that you have this recorded because it's part of our history.
It is part of our history, and as we go along through the month of May, we will try and have at least one survivor on each show, so that we can get a better view of exactly what took place on board that ship. So
I hope you're recording this. So that's my view. I just want to say that it's very interesting, and I appreciate the knowledge with regards to our Bahamian history.
thank you so much, my friend. We're going to keep pressing on. Thank you very much, Brother Starr.
Okay.
Line 2, you're on Maritime Matters Live. Thank you for calling. Hello? Yes, sir. Yes, it is. Hey, Godfrey. Boy, thank you very much for that clip, man. That's every time I hear that, I want to cry.
Yeah, no, listen, man, I wrote that sometime in 1980, and I keep promising that I will put some details that the general the caller just now was talking about. I'm recording the history. And, you know, I've been troubling myself to do. I have to go down to base and go through the files and put together something that could be shared in school. I still might do that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I encourage it.
That was I mean, even now, it's a poignant moment for me because you may know the lies, but I came of Flamingo about 3 weeks before that incident happened. Anthony and I were the officers on board for about a year.
Wow. Okay.
So I came
So you knew that crew very well as
all
well.
of those guys. I knew them very well.
Wow. Yeah. And the thing is, people like me who wasn't even on the defense force, you know, I get a little surgy when I hear about it. So I can imagine people like you who was on the force.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was kind of.
Yeah.
Not something. It was something else.
Yeah. And hats off to Anthony and the rest of those guys.
And thank you, man, for bringing this to the defense office to the public, right?
And I thank you, my brother, for giving me that piece to play, and for continuing to call the show. And then, you know, we gotta keep it alive, man. We maritime people. Thank you, Godfrey. All right. Maritime Matters. Hello. Caller, you live on Maritime Matters. Are you still there? This is Maritime Matters. Hello. Maritime Matters. Thank you very much for calling.
Yes, good evening, Captain Bain. Captain Bain.
Captain Herbert Brain, I miss you, man. I haven't, we got to talk. I haven't seen you. Thank you very much for calling, my brother. Go right ahead. I know you always have that great contribution to make to the show.
Oh, indeed. I think, man, you really outdid yourself with this particular show. I'm telling you, I was sitting down in my bed listening to the show, and I was all teared up because listening to the last post and to think about the tragedy that would have happened on May 10th. And, you know, to think about all those, most of those guys who you would have remembered, who you were not aware who that were on the actual Flamingo. I also, like you, would have served with these guys. Some of them I knew were on it, and some I did not know, like you. But I think that this is this show really and truly is a fitting tribute to the life and the sacrifice that those guys have made. Listening to the poem that Godfrey would have written, I think it needs to be copyrighted. I think it needs to be played. I think on May 10th of this year, that needs to be the staple on all of our Bahamian news media. And then I think the last thing, I just believe that, you know, I love the whole idea of naming those roads, but we need to also make sure, get that big bronze memorial to take over that roundabout at Carl Harbor as well, with some tribute to those guys as well, to kind of be the linchpin to what all the meaning behind all of those roads.
That is correct.
Those intersections.
And I'll take it a step further, maybe not to cut you off, but I'll take it a step further and say that facing each one of their road would be a full body statue of the actual person.
Now you're on this.
And a big monument, each one of them facing their own. You know, I know you're a Jonkuru man and you're a man with plenty design ability, so we get, and by the way, when you see Godfrey again, I apologize for not realizing he was so talented, eh?
Well, Godfrey really surprised me. He's a man of many talents.
Very,
He
yes.
plays the guitar, he's a singer-songwriter, he's a poet, you know, and so, yeah, again, I think Godfrey, you did yourself
Yeah,
hats
man.
off to you, and you know, I just want to big shout out to all the survivors of the Flamingo incident, many of whom are my friends and comrades, and I hope that the good Lord continue to bless you all, because you will have served us in a manner that words cannot adequately describe. So thanks again. Thanks for the opportunity to call it.
Oh, just before you go, Herbie, there's one or two of those guys that actually served with you and I on the inaugural. And I know you used to carry them hard. You need to apologize to them. You need to apologize to them, maybe.
I actually stayed with several of them.
I know.
And a few others. And yeah, John Wallace, I apologize.
Especially John Wallace. You need to apologize on national radio and
John Wallace for leaving him at the graveyard and all everything else.
Yeah.
You know, we had a good time on board. These guys were lots of fun. And it was just a pleasure for me to have known them.
Yes. Thank you very much. As always, thanks for your call. Maybe I got some more notes here I want to finish up. I guess I may have another call or two. If not, I got more than enough to finish up. And yeah, thank you for reaching out and keeping the show alive, my friend.
Yeah, man, and thank you, brother. You're doing an excellent job. Like I said, this show, in my opinion, this may have been show number 13, but this is definitely show number 1.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This will be show number 1 until we move on to those survivors being on the show, and then this will start getting kickback.
And do not drop the last post. The last post must be the staple moving forward.
No, but that will be played for the whole month of May.
Indeed.
Yeah. Also that poem by Godfrey. I was so taken aback. And the 21 gun salute. Yes, sir.
Like I said, you did yourself.
Thank you very much, my friend. We'll keep in touch, man. All right. Oh, that's my good friend. Obi, my good friend Godfrey, my good friend JT. All of my good friends just keeping me alive, and I appreciate them. And you know, we always like people to call in during talk shows. I got plenty to talk about. This is a real talking night for me. And anyway, let me go on. If no lines light up, I'll just keep moving on. Now, according to Amos Roll, Command Amos Roll, you know, doing my research, Amos is giving a synopsis of what took place on that ill-fated trip. HMBS Flamingo departed Coral Harbor at around 1400 hours, which is 2 p.m. on that Thursday. And they hit the tongue of the ocean, heading south. And the weather was rather choppy. So they stopped at Green Key. They said, you know, they spend the night at Green Key anchored. I know why they really stopped. All us used to stop at Green Key, the fishing. Plenty of fish was around Green Key. And they left the next morning and they proceeded directly through Blossom Channel to Grinchell's Key. Now, Grinchell's Key is like in the middle of nowhere. And it's just a key in the middle of nowhere, right on the edge of the Great Bahama Banks and the Santorin Channel, that ocean between Cuba and the Bahamas. And according to Commander Wool, when they got to Grinchell's Keys and they spent the night there. So they left the next morning, which would have been Saturday morning. And from Grinchell's Key, they were headed to Ragged Island, but of course, you got to pass Key Lobos, because Key Lobos sits kind of smack in between Grinchell's Key and Ragged Island. The Key Lobos is the one with the big lighthouse and all the rest of that. And as they were passing Key Lobos, they sighted 2 Cuban fishing vessels heading toward Cuba, away from of course, there was already an ocean. So Amos said that he decided not to pursue them, because obviously they wasn't engaged in aqua fishing at the time, and they were underway, and they were a good little distance away. So, when I saw that, I was like, this is strange that, he came across 2 vessels off Key Lobos, our waters, fishing vessels, obviously, Cuban government fishing vessels, and they were in departure mode just before he got there. And then when he got to Key Santo Domingo, later on, the 2 vessels were in departure mode as he approached. Somebody had been telling them that this patrol boat was coming to them. That's the only conclusion I could come to, because normally they would fish and they would fish and they would fish. So it's just ironic to me that whenever they reach the area, the vessels are heading out and already have a head start. But anyway, he went to Ragged Island, And when they got to Ragged Island, they drove anchor. Some of the crew already started dressing and putting on their little cologne. I don't know what they expect to find ashore on Ragged Island, because, you know, ain't much operations going on Ragged Island. I guess they just wanted to go to the bar and have a few drinks. And Ragged Island's a little small little operation. But anyway, when you're in the back of nowhere and you're riding that great Bahama bank, and the only island in the area is Ragged Island, you just won't get off the ship. And at the last minute, Commander Rule decided, gentlemen, let's get this anchor up. We're not going to hang around here. I'm going to check Key Santo Domingo, and then we'll come back. So they set off for Key Santo Domingo. When they got there, they met those vessels starting to head out. So what they did, they tried to stop them. They said, hey, y'all ain't got nowhere. The vessels were not paying attention, and like I was telling Jerome a minute ago, oh, my time is up. Anyway, like I was telling Jerome a minute ago, I think those Cubans fishing in that area were so accustomed to doing so, they just thought it was okay to fish in that area, and because they know Bahamian patrol boats used to be down there until the Marlin and Flamingo came around. So apparently the Cubans, they paid no regard to our Bahamian patrol boat. So we had to actually shoot one of the engines or shoot toward them. Just let them know after the warning shots they keep avoiding. Let them know, well, look, you all need to stop. And they stopped. And so after they stopped, went on board, checked them out, took one in tow, the other one was supposed to follow, and the jets showed up. And then the jets came back, and they bombed the Flamingo. And you know what happened after that. The rest is history. They bombed the Flamingo, they got on everybody had to scramble to get on that one boat that wasn't sinking, and they had to darken ship, otherwise they probably would have found them. And that's the story of the Flamingo people. We know the rest, but it's so unfortunate. There's so much we need to do as far as reparation, and I don't have time in this show, but next show for sure we're going to talk about reparations to those, not only the 4 men that got killed, but the 4 that died later on, and the 11 that still survives. They need to be taken care of. You were listening to Maritime Matters. Thank you very much for your cooperation in this show. Thank you to my callers. And again, you know we got our 3 sponsors, One-on-One Pharmacy, we got Brother Startup,